idea that if you can't see it on YouTube, it doesn't exist historically. And I think that's part of the problem. There is no YouTube of Moses going up Egypt. There's no YouTube of the splitting of the Red Sea. There's no YouTube of the conquest of Joshua. And people say, well, there's no YouTube. When I Google it, it doesn't exist. We have to think a little differently. The way history works is not according to YouTube. History works according to culture, according to tradition, according to fact of people all over the world thinking in this particular way. Imagine 1 second if someone came out and said that the Palestinians have no connection to Muhammad. That's a made-up legend. We know what would happen in the streets of the world. We see how the reactions that would happen over there. Yet they feel no problem, no compunction coming out and saying that the Jews have no connection with a place that you have thousands of people at any given holiday praying in front of. You have people that for years have been saying the same prayers about Jerusalem. 3 times a day there are millions of Jews around the world that turn to Jerusalem and pray to Jerusalem. Yet we have Palestinians that never studied any of the history of the Jewish people are coming out and saying, you guys have nothing to do with that. It's at the very least insulting, but it's at the most, it's something that under ordinary conditions in other areas of the world could lead to religious wars. And these are the types of things that started religious wars, when you take a religious basis and saying you have no right to exist. And that's basically the most basic denial of fundamental human rights that there can be. That you as a people do not exist. You're a make-believe people. Take a university like Al-Quds University, which is headed by a very professorial, considered moderate individual, Dr. Sari Nusseibeh. You take a look at their description of the history of Jerusalem, which is more than a history of Jerusalem, it's a history of the entire area. And you'll see very clearly, in black and white, in plain English for everyone to read, that Jerusalem has nothing to do with the Jews. King David never existed. The conquest of the land of Israel by Joshua never took place. King Solomon never existed. Of course, there was never any temple on the Temple Mount. The Western Wall that we know today is simply a remnant of some Roman building. There's a denial, a complete denial, and a routine denial of anything having to do with Jews in the Middle East. You'll also see on that website, Jews are not mentioned at all. You'll have Zionists at the end, but the presence of Jews in this area, zilch, zero, nothing. It's something that you see played on Palestinian media. You find it throughout the educational system. The idea that Jews belong here is something that's foreign. The idea that Jews actually were here is even more foreign. And that's something that I think goes to the heart of the delegitimization of the rights of Jews to be here and the rights of Israel as a Jewish state. When people speak about that there is no roots of Jews in Israel and there's no right of Jews to Israel, that basically is the crux of the entire matter. Because if there was no Jewish connection to the area and no Jewish historical rights and Jewish claims to the area, there cannot be in Israel. And the enemies of Israel recognize that. And the people that refuse to recognize Israel delegitimize the Jewish connection, because without the Jewish connection, what should we be doing here? We could be just as well be anywhere else. So, if you go back and you ask the question again, what is the importance of the historical connection of the Jews to Israel? It is the only thing that's important, and everything else is commentary. If you accept the fact that the Jews belong here and Jews have a right here, The political questions of how much land will be Jewish land and how much land will be Palestinian Arab land will be solved in a political matter, in a political mechanism. But if you don't accept the fact that the Jews have an indigenous, legitimate, basic right to being in the land of Israel, then nothing else will follow from that. Which is why, in all the negotiations, the importance of having the Palestinian Arab people recognize that this is a Jewish state is raised time and time and time again. If I saw somebody coming into my neighborhood that didn't belong there and pitched a tent and decided to stay in the neighborhood and stake claim to something, I'd say, what are you doing here, and why should you be here, and why should I allow you to be in my neighborhood if you don't have a claim? That's exactly the way Jews are being portrayed as far as the Middle East is concerned. That we're a legend, we have nothing to do here, and we really should go back to different... So the effect on the Palestinian street, and I don't think we could minimize this, because if you're going to make peace, there has to be reconciliation between peoples. And if people grow up with the idea that the people they're trying to make peace with really have no rights or shouldn't belong there and have nothing to do there, how are you going to get together and do anything? There's a misconception that the idea of occupation really only has to do with the lands that were occupied after '67. But if you take a look at Palestinian media, you take a look at some of the educational systems and some of the stuff that's being taught to kids, including on children's programs, Palestine is considered the entire mandate of Palestine. So we're talking about Haifa, we're talking about Jaffa, we're talking about Ashdod, we're talking about Ashkelon, areas that are within the internationally recognized borders of Israel pre-67 are considered in Palestinian culture, popular Palestinian culture, to be part of their land, which again creates a tremendous problem because that's essentially what's being taught today. And that's, again, goes back to the same crux of the same problem. Without recognizing that there's a Jewish right here and Jewish independence here, you cannot have anything else that follows.
أيها المجاهدون البواسل، تبذلون الروح رخيصة في سبيل الله تعالى حتى تعود الجدران إلى جحورها. اليوم غزة، وغدا إن شاء الله تعالى القدس، وغدا الضفة الغربية، وغدا حيفا ويافا وتل الربيع، حتى تحرير الوطن كل فلسطين.
When we talk about occupation, many people think that occupation only has to do with the West Bank and Gaza. But when Palestinians speak about occupation, a very large number of them speak about the occupation of the entire land of Palestine, which includes the modern state of Israel.